What eliminate your interest in someone? Story 1. She mocked and mimicked how my mom talked as a joke. My mom literally had ALS and couldn't articulate properly. Answer. I'm a server. Years ago, one of the new girls started making fun of this kid that was eating with his feet, like fully skilled W the utensils. Well, she felt like absolute shoot when she learned he was actually born disabled and doesn't have hands. Whoop. I'm pretty sure that changed her. Also wanted to update, because the kid is now an adult and doesn't eat with his feet anymore. Amazing party trick though. Story 2. First date. We sat down at a table for dinner, and the previous customer's tip was still sitting there. She picked it up and put in her purse. Story 3. He made fun of people who get excited about little things, like, bro, if you can't be happy over a 5 milkshake or a sunset, what do you feel? Answer. OMG. This reminds me of when I was complimented in Bath & Body Works. This employee said I was pretty and she loved my outfit when I was out with my ex. I was so happy. And I told him about it when he came back over to me, and he laughed at me and said, "She didn't mean that. That's her job, baby. She's trying to get you to buy things." He said the same thing later that day when we went to Kohl's. Anytime someone complimented me, he had to clarify that they're trying to get something from me. Like, darn, can I be happy? Story 4. Lose interest when someone is pretending to be someone they're not. You know, when their words say one thing, but their actions say something completely different. Or when the whole conversation revolves around them, with zero curiosity about the person in front of them. I really value sincerity and genuine connection, and when that's missing, my interest just quietly fades away. Story 5. Years ago, I worked at a coffee shop, and this cute regular used to come in, and I developed a huge crush on him. Then he got a job at the place I worked, and he was the whiniest, laziest worker. That about did it. Answer. Someone being competent at their job and not complaining about it is an underrated green flag, because everyone correlates being good at a job with having a good job. But I've been with people with terrible jobs with terrible pay who made the best of their situation. I don't mind paying for dinner if that's the case, especially if they have a future plan. Story 6. I didn't realize this place was special ed to me. Within earshot of the waitress who had brought us our coffees on our first date, I just got up, paid for my coffee and tipped the waitress. Here in Australia, tipping isn't mandatory, and apologized for my terrible taste in dates. Oh, and the waitress had Down syndrome. She was bubbly and helpful the whole time, and the only mistake anyone made that night was by me. Story 7. When they show zero genuine curiosity about me and every conversation is just about them, my interest dies instantly. Answer. That's what happened in my most recent relationship. He only started asking deeper questions during our last conversation, likely because he knew I was on the brink of breaking up with him. I reread our text threads last night on my laptop last night, and it became so clear how he was only interested in the relationship for his own comfort and validation. He ignored me anytime I shared an accomplishment or something I was excited about. He provided minimal answers or insight anytime I shared an emotional need, but expected full presence and attunement from me. Our text threads were pretty much entirely filled with issues going on in his aquarium and stuff related to his ex-wife. I felt more like a therapist than a partner. I should have walked away much sooner. Story 8. She said I was unambitious because I work a 9-5, all while she lives off her parents' money and bed rots all day. Answer. Funny how we project our insecurities on others just to make them look miserable. Well, I don't get mad by being called out by something I'm not. This speaks more about them than about us. Why? Adding to that, Things that bother me in others are instantly taken as things I should take care of internally. After learning this exercise, my self-talk skyrocketed, and I don't take others for dumbasses without knowing them first. Story 9. We ate in the car, and on our way back home, she opened the window and took the armful of trash and flung it out the window. No warning. Fudge degenerate. Answer: I can't. I was dating a girl in high school and we're out walking one time, and she threw a bottle cap on the ground and I picked it up. She was like, "Oh, I don't need that." And I just said, "Oh, I'm not being a puppy dog. I just don't like littering." It wasn't a deal breaker for me or anything. I just kind of thought it was like maybe a teachable moment. I mean, we were like 16. Story 10. She told me she found a dead homeless guy with her mate, and they proceeded to twerk on him and take selfies. Story 11. Her dogs shoot in her bedroom and she just put a paper towel over it. I was barefoot and stepped in it. Story 12. He complained about everything, and if he couldn't find something to complain about, he'd make something up so he could complain about that. I can't get behind that compulsive need to be miserable. Answer: professional complainer here. I didn't realize I was until one of my earliest ex-boyfriends told me I was too negative. I think non-complainers don't realize that complainers are not exactly miserable, at least not all of us. In fact, it feels great to complain, LMAO. That's actually how I learned to bond with people. I grew up in a super cynical, neurotic, and anxious family. It was just what we did to let off steam. We would go out somewhere and complain about everything and everyone together and get home and say, "That was a fun outing, LMAO." When I meet a new friend and we can complain, together it feels cathartic. When someone doesn't want to complain with me, it actually makes me feel anxious, like there is something fake about it. Obviously, these days I don't lead with the negativity, but when I get a whiff of a fellow complainer, I feel some warm and fuzzies. Story 13. He was a prison guard and bragged about physically harming his inmates in sly ways that he could get away with. Story 14. Felt like I'm begging for his attention, demanding for his time and presence. Then I remembered how I was treated in my past recent relationship and how I cried a lot. Promised myself I won't let myself be in the same situation again. Story 15. I was on a date, and as we were walking to our destination, I noticed a homeless man struggling to step up onto a curb. So I walked over and helped him up, no big deal. It all lasted less than 30 seconds. Date was absolutely disgusted that I would touch a homeless person. She was convinced I was covered in piss and was weird the rest of the date. Didn't go on a second date, it was mutual. Story 16. Told me he was single, then opened up. He lives with someone who thinks they are still in a relationship even though he's done. Answer: I've dealt with 2 guys like this in my life. One told me, "Yeah, my wife and I aren't together anymore, but we sleep in the same bed so the kids won't know." The other said, "My wife doesn't care what I do," which was then followed by, "I can't get a hotel in this town because my wife will see the charge and ask why I was getting a hotel so close to home." Story 17. Lying about his height and then getting mad at women for being lied to. Matched online and he told me he was short, like 5'6" on a good day. I said, "That's totally fine, BC, I'm 5'3", so I don't mind that at all." He rolled up and was absolutely 5'0" or 5'1". I thought I'd give him a chance anyway. He spent the date talking about how shallow women are because they don't like that he's short. Maybe, my guy, we don't like that you lie to us. Answer: I don't think short men realize we don't care about it that much unless they make a huge fudge deal out of it. I'm 52. So it's hard to find men who are shorter than me, but I have dated a guy who was exactly my height. He might have actually been an inch shorter, but he literally never talked about it. Just when they make their height and their insecurity about it their whole personality is when it's a problem. Story 18. She made fun of me for having an interest in music. Said that's something for people who aren't manly enough. I have never lost interest in someone so quickly. Edit. Let me clarify. I play an instrument. She thought that playing an instrument wasn't manly. Story 19. Codependent with his mom. Seemed like a nice guy. A bit immature, but didn't seem too bad at first. A few dates in, he starts insisting his mom join in on everything. Story 20. After I spend 4.5h on a train, and he wasn't there when I arrived. He didn't answer texts or calls. After 15 minutes, he said he was just around the corner. He wasn't. Took another 15-20 minutes before he actually showed up. This was around 11:30 p.m. in a city I had only been to twice, lone female, and the fact he didn't bother to even text that he was late. He was late the other times too, but not as much. So, yeah, when he arrived, I cried. Not heavy, just like hard to speak, because the throat is tight, and I felt hurt. When he tried to joke it away. And then he laughed at me for crying. In that very second, every ounce of attraction was just gone for him. Answer. I've been in this situation too. It's a feeling I can only describe as the feeling you had when you were a kid and lost sight of your parent in an extremely busy or desolate place, like a supermarket or a park. The train came in super late into this metro city that I know but can't really navigate. I couldn't get a hold of the person I was staying with, and the taxis are nowhere to be found. I cannot walk to where I was going. It was dark and barely anyone outside, and everyone's ride has come and gone, and the guys who closed the station were concerned I might have to sleep there, which isn't allowed. I almost called the police. Story 21. When you are a good listener, but people who you hang out with never reciprocate this and keep blabbering about themselves all the time, beyond a point, when are they consistent about their behavior, you no longer want to meet them. Absolute zero curiosity about the other person or to hear them out is a buzzkill. So is when someone lie about things, and then when you call them out, they blame you and are conveniently the victim. So immature. Story 22. Guy I was dating bought me a 1-month anniversary present. Some lantern he was trying to DIY but broke in the process. He gave it to me, and then he said he wanted the money for it. WTF. Story 23. Trying to move too fast after only 3 days of messaging and messaging things you'd only say to an actual girlfriend-boyfriend. Story 24. She smoked a cigarette outside my house, already a red flag, and threw the butt in my garden with zero hesitation. It was like a movie where the butt spun in the air in slow motion and the camera cuts to my face, also in slow-mo, making a single, telling and extended blink. Story 25. When I was dating, the big turnoff for me was a guy being a whiner. He spent the whole first date whining about his mother, his job, etc. I couldn't get away fast enough. Story 26. I'm mixed, black and white, and I was talking to a boy that was dark-skinned. One day out of nowhere he said he's glad I'm not dark because my skin color is perfect. He started making comments about how dark-skinned women are ugly and he would never date one. His mother is a dark-skinned woman. I immediately lost all interest and feelings for him and never spoke to him again. Colorism is disgusting. Story 27. In the early 2000s, I broke up with the hottest girl I ever dated. By a supermodel hot. She was authentic, sweet, true, and loyal. But so beyond dumb she could not even put a question mark in the right place in a sentence. She misspelled every single word in an email. Just dumb. 25 years later, I'm sitting here realizing who the dumb one really was. Answer: darn, I had a very similar experience, but was with her for a decade. And while I didn't realize how much I missed being mentally stimulated or laughing at something witty together, lol, she had an innocence about her that was cute. But when it started causing communication issues or anything, even simple ideas I'd express wouldn't be understood. Darn, I'm pretty sure I was the dumb one in my situation for sure. Story 28. She would always talk about her IBS issues. I can sympathize, but talking about your literal shoot half the time, especially when we're still just getting to know each other, isn't exactly a turn-on. Story 29. The depression-hoarding trash pile mess of a filthy bedroom my ex lived in. She refused to let me go under her bed or look behind it to do cleaning because she would just eat shoot and throw all the wrappers underneath, like she lived in a dump. Story 30. An intimacy partner once told me that she lost interest once she found out that I had a previous intimacy partner with whom we were both acquainted. Story 31. Anytime a guy is super excited about me after the first date, sending hearts, bringing up marriage and kids, that gives away instantly that you're building up some idealized version of me in your head that he'll never live up to. You don't know me well enough to be that excited about me yet. You don't know me, period. Scares the shoot out of me as someone who dated an actual narcissist. I cannot stand being idealized. Story 32. Dating someone who always wanted to argue or play devil's advocate on the tiniest conversations. He also stopped believing in God and became an abusive alcoholic. Story 33. We come from different races. He constantly looked down on my skin tone and cracked racist jokes. Initially, it was all in good fun, but later it became quite insulting, constantly tearing me down and my culture. I left. Story 34. The last boyfriend I ever had before I met my now husband and I went to a festival. It was a long day, and it was tough for him to find a place to smoke. We were both cranky, but as we were leaving the festival, there was a group of people who were catching as we went out and was asking questions, doing the public opinion type stuff. He snapped at the person who was doing shoot pole work for probably shoot pay, and I don't know if it was just the end of the relationship was happening anyway. But how he treated that random person just doing their job, I was just like, no thanks anymore. Story 35. We were out drinking with some friends, and she proceeded to get tipsy and snatched my drink from my hand and chugged it, which would have been fine and could even be taken as a joke if she had not then threw up on the floor. Story 36. He speaks only about girls that are doing money on OnlyFans. Like, WTF, bro? If you want, you can do it too. Story 37. Too superficial. He needed to always be wearing designer, have a fancy watch, let everyone know within minutes of talking to him he went to Stanford, said he never liked to have a car more than a year, he would lease them, and it always had to be some expensive car, etc. Story 38. Her inability to take accountability and offer a sincere apology for her actions. Very self-absorbed and hypocritical. Fudge you, Joan. Story 39. Every other third word was bro. Blah, 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 bro. Blah, 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 bro. Made me want to bro. Punch him right in the face. Story 40. Every activity we did had to include adult beverage. Not only that, but she would get tipsy almost every time we did drink. I don't know how she was able to run marathons being such an alcoholic. Story 41. Said he needed to talk to me more, missed our conversations, and then proceeds to not speak to me for days on end. Words don't mean shoot, your actions do. Story 42. Her exuberant support of MAGA. I wasn't always a political person, but to me, it seems we just have different core values. Story 43. Girl kept talking negatively about every couple that was walking around the mall on our first date, to the point where it was almost like a challenge to say something every single time. Needless to say, there was no second one. Story 44. I barely knew this girl, and she was talking about her bedroom desires. She really wanted me to wake her up in the morning by giving her oral. And I asked if she would reciprocate, and she said only when we are living together and engaged to be married. Barely knew her, and she was planning a life with me. Story 45. When he mocked an older, nice man in my seminar going for his degree in history, my dad was right in his evaluation of that guy. Story 46. I'm an atheist, but if you're not, I'm okay with it. What I'm not okay with is when you say Jesus is number one in your life and your son comes second. A dead man coming before your child. Gotcha. Story 47. They trolled kids online. I don't understand how people get joy out of hacking games to terrorize people who did nothing wrong. Story 48. He left one tip for the server at the restaurant stating, "They make enough money, I don't need to tip them." Keep in mind we split the bill. Story 49. She was rude to an employee at a store because something she ordered was running late. And not just the normal low emotional intelligence, loud sighing and huffing far too many people think is okay. She got pissed and yelled at them. I stayed behind and apologized to them, then stopped calling her. We weren't dating, but I was working on making it happen before that. Story 50. She brought her kid to our first date, was clearly a hoarder, and her apartment stank of trash and cat piss. Story 51. When they get too clingy too fast, and guilt shame you for not wanting to hang out as much as they want to. Ooh, and can you respect boundaries, you know? Story 52. Driving home from dinner on our second date, a squirrel almost gets run over trying to cross oncoming traffic. I point it out, and she laughs and says, "Too bad. Fudge those little tree rats." Story 53. We had been talking online for a few days about how smart cephalopods were, and then she suddenly starts spouting nonsense about flat Earth and 5G being used to brainwash people. Story 54. She never let me off the phone for any reason, didn't like me talking to my friends, would accuse me of everything under the sun if I wasn't on my phone, and finally decide to copy my texting style as a punishment. She was HR manager. Now I know why HR people are so messed up. Story 55. Once I was at a guy's house, he still lived with his mom, and the family dog shoot in his mom's room. Instead of taking care of it, he was like, "She'll get it when she gets home." An unwillingness to take responsibility is an instant no for me, dog. Story 56. I thought we shared a special bond and we both wanted a future together. Turns out she was just lonely and wanted to pretend she was in a relationship. Story 57. He told me if I ever got pregnant, I would be getting an abortion. I told him I could never do that, and he said that I could and would, and that he'd pay for it, take me there, and make sure I was okay. Story 58. Discovering he was a hoarder, I loved him enough to marry him, until I saw his apartment. I could only have married him if we lived apart. Story 59. She showed up dressed to impress. Hair, makeup, tight dress. She got pissed I wasn't ready. We didn't have plans. Story 60. TL.dr. She tried to feed my dog antifreeze. She disliked my dog because I spent too much time with my pup. I went to visit my dad for 2 weeks, brought my dog, came back to find a brand new unopened bottle of antifreeze in her closet. When I asked about why it was there, lots of accusations, lots of weird statements. Then it dawned on me. She had once drunkenly bragged to me about bleaching a guy's saltwater tank before she dumped him. I immediately left with my pup, spent the night in a hotel, came back the next day and moved everything out of that house. Blocked her number, blocked her on social, and hoped to never hear from her again. It took me a year, moving 5 states away, to finally stop hearing from her. My pup is still safe and happy. Story 61. One of my brother's friends asked me out. This should have been my first red flag. An hour before the date, he asked me if I could pick him up. We have a decent meal. As we are leaving, he asked if we could hang out at my place until his cousin got back to let him in. Okay, that's fine. Then he asks if I would stop at the gas station. Okay, sure, it's on the way anyway. We get back to my place. Dude busts out the Crown Royal I assume he picked up, from the gas station, and starts drinking. Then calls his child's mother and starts arguing with her. I inform him it's time for him to leave, and I will drop him off as I had already agreed to it. I declined a second date. Story 62. When she blamed me for how fudge up her life was. It was always my fault she couldn't afford rent, but she barely ever worked and was constantly losing clients. Constantly said it was my fault she couldn't afford rent because I decided against moving in with her after only dating for a few weeks. She wanted me to sign a 2-year lease and move into a house where I would have to pay double my current rent and would essentially become a babysitter for her 3 kids. Story 63. She told me she spent upwards of $1,000 per month on plant substance. Meanwhile, her parents were paying for her rent. Story 64. Me, M26. So, what do you want to do in life? Like, what are your goals? Her, F22. Well, I would really like to go to more raves. Sucked because she was a regular at my job, and I had a massive crush on her for like 2 years. Finally asked her out, and this was part of a conversation we had after a few dates. Story 65. She and I both came from families with alcoholics. Her mom was in a really bad spot while we were in college, and my mom had just divorced my stepdad at the time. She honestly thought since my parent wasn't related to me, the pain wasn't as meaningful and didn't have as much sympathy for me as I did for her. Really left a bad taste in my mouth. Story 66. Finding out she was racist after around 2 months together. She had Hispanic neighbors, and they were good dudes in all my interactions with them. Never caused a single problem, just good neighbors. I was out having a smoke and they were having a cookout and asked if we wanted some plates. I was like, hell yeah. Went inside to see if her and the kids wanted some. She immediately launched into, WTF, why would you ask that? I don't want their fudge dirty food. They're disgusting and need to be deported. All kinds of racist shoot. She'd never shown anything like that. Story 67. Me. So, what hobbies do you have? Him. Oh, I like